As I was writing my next blog post for my time as artist in residence at the American Viola Society, I realized that some of this would probably be better with a video. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This blog post is about how to play the viola without using shoulder rest or without contact from the left shoulder. I realize this is not of interest to everybody, but it is a topic that keeps coming back up on a lot of internet sites, on the AVS website, for example, at violinist.com. And so for those who are interested, I thought we'd go over these 7 points that I put together with the video just to make it a little clearer. Okay, point number one, it's one I never heard from anybody else, but it's true. A lot of instruments have shellac on the neck. I've talked to several luthiers. It doesn't need to be there, and it could be easily buffed out of existence. But if you're going to play without shoulder contact, you need to be able to move your left hand around the neck easily. And when it gets hot on stage and your thumb starts to sweat a little bit, the shellac can get a little bit sticky, so it can hold things up. By the same token, you really want to wash your hands before you play. You don't want anything, if you just had put honey in something, you can't move your thumb around the same way, or if it's just dirty from anything. So make sure that you can get around easily. On the other end of the instrument, the viola is held either between the chin and the collarbone or the jawbone and the collarbone. As you can see, the jawbone and the collarbone are parallel to each other, and the instrument just goes in like this. For a break, you can turn your head a little bit, and then it's more between the chin and the collarbone. Very little pressure from the chin. Most of the time, you don't need any at all. Let's see, on that point, well, what else did I write here? Oh yeah, I wanted to mention it's easier to have your chin more in the middle of the instrument, not too far to the left. I wouldn't put your chin in the chin rest. I know it seems like an obvious thing to do. I'd have the chin more in the middle. The chin rest is really the jawbone rest, and then when you're more in the middle, it's easier for balance. In the summer, I use a little bit of a towel, when it's warm out. Right now, later today, it's supposed to be below zero here in western Massachusetts. In most of the year, I wear a jacket, and that keeps my collarbone from being in pain. But with nothing there can be a little pain. For kids, often they'll put a sponge on the back of the instrument just to soften the collarbone. It's not great to have a big sponge, though. That does mute the back plate, which needs to vibrate. Okay, so the problems that need to be solved, this is point number 3, are really all at the left hand. People think they're replacing the shoulder rest by holding the instrument another way here, like you're supposed to be able to do this, which I think is really a bad idea, because there's a tremendous strain on your neck, and you have to hunch your shoulder up, and that mutes the back plate. So we're not doing that. We're not replacing one hold here with another hold here. Actually, the instrument is the vast majority is held in the left hand. It's really held against the left index finger. You can see the thumb doesn't even really need to touch, but if it touches lightly, that makes things easier. Those are the 2 points of contact on the neck. Let's see. So the 2 things that bother people to play this way are vibrato and shifting. So I'm going to first mention vibrato. We just talked about the 2 points. You've got the base of the first finger, and you've got the thumb. When you don't use vibrato, if you're just playing, I don't know, some kind of scale, that the instrument is held on both sides this way. But the moment let's say we're going to add a note at the end of that with vibrato. When you do that, you can see I move a little bit from side to side, a little bit top to bottom. So now the 2 points of contact are the finger pressing down on the fingerboard, down onto the lower half of the thumb, right below the break in the thumb. So I'm exaggerating. I don't really move from this all the way this way, but I do go a little bit this way. I think you can really see this when Itzhak Perlman plays. You can see in those slower passages where he's using a lot of vibrato, his thumb sticks out almost like a hitchhiker thumb. So you can see he's pressing down onto the lower part of the thumb. Oh, and the other thing that bothers people is shifting. Well, when you shift up, as I say, as long as you can get around easy, when you shift up, you're just pushing into the neck. So that's not a big deal. When you shift back, you do need a little bit, just a little bit of head pressure, but it's only a little bit. Adding more than that is not going to help the shift. People who use shoulder rests often are used to hopping, so the thumb does not maintain contact with the neck the whole way back. It lets go, and then they come back in first position. It comes back into contact. Here, you do need to maintain contact, but if you practice this over a while, you know, there are several things you can do with the left hand to make this a lot easier. One is the thumb has to be choreographed just like any of the other fingers. So sometimes you'll see right before the shift the thumb will come away from the neck and maybe will lead a little bit. We'll move a little bit first. That's one way of doing it. In general, just as you're developing, you know, you're stretching between each of these fingers, you're going to be developing what's between the thumb and the first finger. And then there's the issue of pressure. Even though you're maintaining contact, during the shift you want to have as light pressure as you can. And you don't want to let the neck sink into the webbing either. You want to keep the thumb fairly low. It can stick up a little bit, but so all of these things are important in shifting. But when people first try this, they tend to blame it on the hold here rather than what the left hand is doing. So it's possible by getting your left hand to shift a little bit differently that you can make all of these balances work. All right, point 4. Okay, this is a straightforward point. Until now, you've been basically holding the viola like this with back muscles, and so all of those muscles are developed. Your back muscles and your shoulder, all these things. But now, the instrument really is going to be largely sitting on your left hand. And so you're going to notice when you first start to do this that your upper arm muscles are quite sore because they're having to do something they haven't been doing so far. As with anything else, just do a little bit at a time until you work up to it. But that'll be something new. Some of this is psychological. Yeah, the distances are not as far as you can think. If we were to take a ruler, probably from the bout of this viola to first position, it's probably like 4 inches or something that the thumb has to move. It's not very far. Anything above that, the thumb generally stays here. For really high shifts, sometimes you need to lower the thumb so it can easily come around. But that's really more than, that's very, very high up. Point 6. Okay, we talked about that, yeah. Don't let the opposable thumb oppose. That's something you just have to train. It has to be there very lightly. And point 7, I think I'm going to expand a little bit on what I wrote. I think it's hard to get from playing with a shoulder rest to go straight to this. I think it's reasonable to take the shoulder rest off, and at first to simply have the shoulder in contact with the back of the viola. You don't have to hold it like this because, you know, your left hand is going to be there, and the instrument can just lean on the base of the first finger, and so that the first finger is what's keeping the viola from moving this way. So you don't have to clamp over here, but in the beginning it'll feel more secure to have your shoulder there touching the back of the instrument. Over time, you can bring that shoulder down, and you can see how many passages, the vast majority of them, that even from the beginning, you don't need the contact. It's just, it's useless most of the time. And then, as time goes along and you start to incorporate these other details on how to shift and a new way of vibrating, you'll realize even those remaining few times that you thought you needed the shoulder, you really don't. But still, I think there are times when, you know, like extremely high passages where your thumb is really about to leave the button on the viola, you maybe want some shoulder contact there, because if it does slip, if your thumb is a little sweaty or something, that's not good. So every once in a while, I think, or a huge shift back, you know, if you're uncomfortable, you just raise the shoulder for a moment, come back, and then lower it again. But I really do think that I've found that this is the most comfortable way to play. You can keep your shoulder relaxed. You can keep the instrument more in front. It doesn't have to be way out to the left. You're not confined to one position, and it really it takes away a lot of pressure that would otherwise be there. One final point. You can go watch, for example, I think Nathan Milstein is a great example, because I know we're talking about violin players, but it's the same for both. There's a ton of video at YouTube where you can see how Milstein plays without use of the shoulder, and the reason you can see that is because they're high production films, so they have cameras from all angles, and so you can see him getting around this way. There are other people who played most of the time with shoulder contact. For example, Heifetz, you can see that he really does have the instrument more off to the left and it's sitting on his shoulder. So you can see the two different ways of doing it without a shoulder rest. And then, of course, you can see how many great instrumentalists there are who do use shoulder rests. But the point of this is not, you know, if you start using a shoulder rest, you're not going to turn into whoever your favorite violist who uses a shoulder rest overnight. You're not going to play like them. And the reverse is also true. By taking the shoulder rest off, it's great that Milstein plays as wonderfully as he does, or to talk about violists, Primrose played that way, and Emmanuel Vardi, with whom I studied, played that way. You're not going to turn into them overnight either. My argument is not that it's not going to help or necessarily hurt your playing in any appreciable amount. But what it's going to do, I think, is just provide an easier, more comfortable way of playing the viola. So I hope this video was helpful, and if you have any comments or questions, please just post them below under this blog post at the AVS. Thank you.